Okay, hello everyone. My name is Will Tipton, and I decided to make a poker video. So the story here, essentially, is that Carbon Poker, where I usually play, isn't working today. It won't let me log in for whatever reason, and I don't have enough account balance here. Carbon won't let me log in. However, I happened to get an email today that said Black Chip Poker, where I deposited, I don't know, a couple years ago and didn't really play here much. But anyway, they're trying to get me back, and they deposited $5 in my account. So I can't log into Carbon, but I have $5 on Black Chip Poker, and so I'm gonna try to run it up. I'm going to play the highest stakes that I can sit until I go broke, which is the very likely outcome, or else I make it up to I don't know, whatever the highest stakes they give you action that is. So let's see. So I can't buy into a 5 because I can't pay the rake, even though I have $5 in my account. So I guess I'm playing a $2, and maybe I'll play turbos just so I don't go broke quite so quickly. Okay, so again, I'm going to try to martingale it up. This is fairly likely to be a short video, but with any luck, it'll be a long one. If it's too short, I probably won't publish it, so if you're watching this, it probably means I did all right. Again, I only played on the site a very small amount, like 2 years ago, so I don't really know what the action's like. I also don't know any of the regs. I assume there are regs. I remember the software being okay. Oh, I got a game. I think. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just gonna wait for the game to pop up. Hopefully that happens. What is this? Oh, it's already started. No, wait. It's a different table. Oh, I think I closed my own window. That's embarrassing. Okay, well I'm back now. I'm back, software. Okay. Okay, so we're 75 big blinds deep, I guess. I haven't played 75 big blinds deep very much in quite a while, but I'll do my best. Let's see, let me rearrange this a bit. Yeah, my HUD's normally set up for a sort of landscape style setting, not this top and bottom setting. Okay, let's actually get into some poker. So, min raising a lot of buttons. I actually might start raising the 50 chips total. That is to 2.5 big blinds. Certainly, if the guy doesn't 3-bet me much, I will look to build up some bigger pots in position. At least while blinds are still relatively small. I think I will make 50 my standard open. Given that my bankroll is 1 buy-in deep, I'm maybe going to take a little more conservative approach to some of these matches. Try to get some reads before I spew off my stack. So far this guy has been pretty, seems pretty in line, just over a small sample. He's only played a quarter of his buttons so far. That's 1 out of 4, and he's open raised that one. So he's potentially, above average tightness on in the small blind. He does raise this button though, and we get a flop where we hit nothing. c-bet's 2/3 pot. If he has a tight opening range that hits it to some degree, it's a flop that I would check raise against some people because it's just hard to continue on if you have two cards below the king. Without a pair, it's hard to have a draw or really any much hope. So I think it's a board that you can contest, at least against people who aren't super aware of our range, because we don't rep a ton either with a check raise. I'm gonna c-bet this board just because I would. Oops, not that one either. Half pot. I would c-bet this board with most all my range. It's really awkward if I get check raise, but I don't expect to get check raise a lot, given this guy's been fairly passive so far. If I did get check raise, I would call one and reevaluate. I'm not loving it there with a sort of middle pair hand, but it's far and above like my average c-betting hand. So I check back, get an ace on the turn. I check back here because I have sort of weak showdown value, and the board kind of hits his range to some degree. I don't love c-betting. Basically, I think I get called a lot, but a lot of the times I get called are by various draws. But still, if I bet and he calls and then turn goes check check and he leaves the river, I'm still in a really crappy spot. The ace comes on the turn. I expect him to check me a lot if he's thinking, because often I will have an ace after having checked back the flop. So I just take the opportunity to check back again. Once I do that, I think my range is pretty well defined, but whatever. But then I trip up on the river, so I value bet. Let's see, how do I view his hand? I'm interested what he checked down but then called the river with. A lot of people won't have there are some people who won't have too much of a calling range there, because if they had something, they would have value bet river. I look like some sort of high card, and so they can value bet pretty thin if they want to. I don't actually know how to look at hand histories on the site, so my table's getting away. Okay, so I gonna c-bet. I like c-betting here. I think he can fold sometimes. There's also a ton of turns that I like seeing. Any ace, jack, king 10, club. Unfortunately, I think on this turn I sort of just have to give up. 10 there is kind of interesting. I don't think he bets a 6 or a 7. I would sort of expect him to bet if he had a queen, so I think I can value bet here pretty safely. He could have a 10 himself, 10-9, 10-8, makes sense. Again, I'd like to see what he had. Maybe this site just doesn't show you what your opponent has if they muck. Weird. Okay, blind sold up. I'm going to switch back to min raising. I'm going to min raise and makes 50 my standard c-bet size. So kind of weird. He's playing 3 out of 9 hands on the button, but he's playing 70% out of position. So he might, obviously if that's his, we don't have too large of a sample on him, but if that was his long-term frequencies, that would be a big leak. Despite the fact that he's playing a lot out of position, I was going to say he hasn't been that aggressive. He 3-bets again, but I think it's still fair to say that he hasn't been super aggressive out of position. He's folded every c-bet so far, so I'm still happy just liberally raising the button, despite the fact that he's calling pretty frequently. Here, low card is kind of raggedy. I feel like, well, he's been folding so much. I was gonna say I feel like, well, that's actually just 1 out of 1. Okay, I've only c-betted once, so I'm not gonna pay too much attention to that stat. I was gonna say I feel like I get floated a lot on this board. I feel like they call. There's a lot of ways they can have overcards, or like an overcard and a gut shot, or actually you couldn't have an overcard and a gut shot. But there's a lot of ways they can just, if someone calls loosely, they can call me on this board. And so with king high, I like to get closer to showdown a lot. I mean, if I have a hand that's a little lower with less showdown value and maybe a little more likely to turn backdoor draws, backdoor straight draws, then c-betting will sound better. Okay, so I'm going to 3-bet here. He's been opening a 3x a lot. I'm going to make it 250. It's kind of awkward. It's kind of awkward, actually. Well, I say it's kind of awkward because if he calls, it's 500 in the pot on the flop, and he has like 700 behind, and so my c-bet sizing is just a little weird. Okay, get it in good. And lose. Oh, nope, it's a lose. That's a shame. Okay, we're down to 28 big blinds apparently. I'm gonna keep min raising. He's still 3xing. If he's still 3xing and we're a little shorter than this, then it's very exploitable. I'm gonna start jamming over his raises a lot. Pocket four is there. I think some people would open shove. I don't know, I feel like we're a little deep. If he had 3-bet me when I had pocket fours, I would have had a decision to make. I can't really call. So it's jam or fold. You know, with a 13% 3-bet, it's probably a jam. But you know, with a with one bind to my name. Okay, so half pot here. Well, I've been going 50. I'll keep going 50. I mean, I think it would be reasonable to have a couple of different c-bet sizing that you use in various spots. Very reasonable, actually. And this is the kind of board that I would tend to c-bet bigger, just because I think he has, you know, a lot of stuff that kind of wants to call. It's hard not to have like at least 2 overcards, right? So at least a 6-out draw. That's you know, so it sort of makes sense with both my value hands, you know, to bet bigger to get more value, and it makes sense with my bluff hands to need to bet more to get them to fold. So having a bigger c-bet sizing on the low boards makes sense, I think. So far, I think this guy's biggest leaks are just sort of really straightforward. Whoops, that was a misclick. I was going to bet, but I guess checking's fine too. I think I call here. I don't. He's been passive enough. I kind of give him credit for a little something here. I don't really want to raise. That's a that's a good card. That's better than, I mean, I sort of rep a lot of missed 1-card flush draws, I think, if he's thinking much. So I think I get paid off on this card, and it looks pretty bluffy. Anyway, what was I saying before that? Don't remember. Oh well. Alright, this guy's leaks. I mean, he's I don't think he's playing enough hands in the small blind. Right now he's playing 47% of hands, so clearly not enough. So that's a pretty big leak. It's one I don't have to take too much advantage of myself, right? I mean, if he open folds, and I just take a small blind, and that's great. I guess I'll be a little tighter against his opens than I would if he was opening a wider range. 3 bets again. Can I call? And his other leaks are that I think he's playing maybe the right amount out of position or so, but if he's, I guess I still haven't c-bet very much against him. I don't know, he just doesn't feel that aggressive out of position. Although maybe he 3-bets more in shorter stacks. 22 big blinds deep. 10 jack. I you want to call? I think jamming would be an option, but again, his opening range is perhaps a bit tight. So whether I check raise or check call here depends against a lot of people on how much they barrel. There's a lot of people who I don't expect to barrel very much on this board, because when I check call, I mean, I have a king or a queen a lot, and there's just not that many cards that scare me. So both times I've value bet against him, I bet 2/3 pot, and he called and lost both times. I mean, for the river. So here I might go a little bit different, a little bit bigger. Maybe he doesn't believe it's a value bet since it's a different sizing. Who knows? I also just had the nuts. Snap check folds on what isn't as wet a board as it probably looks like. It's actually, you know, it's hard to make a pair or have a good heart. And of course, straight draws don't really count for much there. So the fact that it was kind of a connected board isn't as important. Jack nine of clubs. I do like this hand. I'm going to make a small 3-bet. I haven't 3-bet him yet, so maybe it gets respect. It does not. That's not true. I 3-bet him previously when I had the ace queen, and he snap jammed ace 10. We were somewhat deep, so that was kind of a light. It's kind of a light 4-bet, I believe. I didn't think about it that much at the time. But if he, you know, light 4-bet and is somewhat frequent 3-bets at this point, I think we can say maybe that wasn't a very good spot to 3-bet bluff. I'm going to barrel here. He can call withdrawals, although I blocked some of them. But if he has a 5 or a 6, you know, the queen's not a great card, and of course I have a ton of outs. Well, I have some outs. I'm going to fold here. This is one of those spots that I play differently. If he was opening more hands, I could potentially even jam sometimes, but I could flat also. But against someone who's just opening like half his hands, I think it's just best to fold there. I'm going to check back. Generally, I mean, I try not to only be like checking back weak showdown values against some people, and those people are people who I think are going to take advantage of it. This does not seem to be one of those people. If he bets here, it's kind of weird. I mean, you'd expect him to value bet most of his value bettable hands on the turn after I check back, given that there's a lot of draws out there. And so of course if he doesn't have a value bettable hand on the turn, he likely doesn't on the river either, unless he has a 3, which is kind of, should be rare. So I mean, I'd probably call a river lead, but on the other hand, he doesn't seem that bluffy in general, so that would be an argument for not calling. Here, I mean, so again, I think I have the best hand most of the time. I want to do whatever I think gets the most money in the pot. You know, against some people on this board, that could even be a check back, because, you know, maybe they would lead a lot versus miss c-bet. This guy, we haven't seen lead versus miss c-bet really at all. So I think betting is definitely best. I go 3 streets here. I do get paid. Really wish I could see what hands he has in these spots. This I'll probably just jam pre-flop, or I will call a jam. He limps for the first time ever, but we're 10 big blinds deep. So after we get down to 10 big blinds, it's clear that he changed his strategy. He limped his button for the first time ever. And a lot of people will start, playing somewhat differently under, under the stack size or so. I certainly will. But I think it's important to start paying attention to your opponent again. I'm gonna check back here. I don't think I get called by a worse very often. Or I don't. Well, I get called by any king or queen, but I guess what I'm saying is I think most of his cards are of the low card variety, given that he snap checked back versus my flop limp. So I don't think there's too much value in betting in general. And sometimes he turns a little something and then I get a bet in. I'm not gonna bet this river if he checks to me. I think all of his turn straight draws now fold. If he happened to turn a flush draw and he got there, then I'm now a beat. I don't really expect. I guess he could have a worse 10 and call again, but I think a random queen or king, or possibly a 9 or 10 or jack, are his most likely hands, and I just don't think that his calling range is. I don't think that at least half his calling range is behind my hand. Really easy shove here. Min raise calls 8-9 offsuit at 9 big blinds, and we hold. So I'm going to decline and then buy into a $5 match. Nice.